Now on a dark and stormy night, not a star was in sight. In a graveyard by a church way up on the hill. Well, the ghosts come out to play, and then I thought I heard one say, I've got you, I'll keep you, I always will.
Oh, now I got you where I want you. I'm gonna keep you where I got you. For you, the one that shot my great-grandpa. I told you I would get you. Oh, if I saw you, now I got you. For you, the one that stole my great-grandma.
Now on that very same night, now that old tomcat started a fight. And this is the way it all did sound to me. Now you know I couldn't stand there. I didn't like them cats, you should know that. Didn't like them ghosts either, so I looked down at my feet. I said, feet, now come on, do your duty and carry me home. But that old ghost looked up to me and said,
oh, now I got you where I want you. I'm gonna keep you where I got you. For you, the one that shot my great-grandpa.
London, largest life. The ghost of Anne Boleyn walks, they declare. Anne Boleyn was once King Henry's wife, until he had the axeman bob her hair. Oh yes, he done her wrong long years ago, and she comes back each night to tell him so. With her head tucked underneath her arm, she walks the bloody tower. With her head tucked underneath her arm at the midnight hour. She's going to find King Henry, she means giving him what for. Gadzooks, she's going to tell him off for having spilled her gore. And just in case the axeman wants to give her an encore, she's got her head tucked underneath her arm. With her head tucked underneath her arm, she walks the bloody tower. With her head tucked underneath her arm at the midnight hour. Along the drafty corridors for miles and miles she goes. She sometimes catches cold, poor thing, it's cold there when it blows. And it's awfully awkward for the queen when she has to blow her nose. With her head tucked underneath her arm. With her head tucked underneath her arm, she walks the bloody tower. With her head tucked underneath her arm at the midnight hour. Now sometimes old King Henry throws a spread for all his pals and gals, the ghostly crew. The axeman carves the joints and cuts the bread, when in walks Anne Boleyn to spoil the do. She holds her head up with a wild war whoop, and Henry cries, don't drop it in the soup. With her head tucked underneath her arm, she walks the bloody tower. With her head tucked underneath her arm at the midnight hour. One day she found King Henry, he was in the castle bar. He said, are you Jane Seymour, Anne Boleyn, or Catherine Parr? Now the heck am I supposed to know just who you are? You got your head tucked underneath your arm. With her head
Hello, 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 and happy Halloween, everybody. We are well into Halloween week, and we celebrate like it's a year-round thing here. So, welcome in, welcome gatekeepers, welcome all these wonderful mods, all these wonderful light workers and listeners here. We are having a ball, and I'll tell you what, I have been looking so forward to tonight. Little special intro, the longest damn intros on all the inner tubes, I promise you. And we just have fun. And everybody comes in here, everybody gets a good seat, they get their snacks out of the lobby. You know, those lines in the lobby are really bad. You want a good seat, you want to see everything. And tonight you're going to want to be very close to the screen. You're going to want to have a good seat tonight, because tonight we're doing chapter 3 of Cabin 22 with one of my best buds. And I'm so excited that on Mondays we get to look forward all week long to sitting here on the front porch where all the crazy sits so we can keep an eye on it. And I get to visit with this man right here. Get up here, you old rattlesnake.
Hey, what's going on? Let me know if you can hear me
Stockton.
okay.
Oh, loud and clear, baby.
Okay, good deal. Bye,
How'd
five.
you like that? With her head
Uh,
tucked underneath her arm, she walks the bloody tower. Is
Have
that
you
just
been
not
in
the best?
You've been in the funny honey again?
Not yet. This is all natural. Isn't that scary?
Now, I hope everybody here listened to my radio show last night over on Clyde Lewis's Ground Zero Network. Sysco was already back for part 2 due to popular demand.
Thank you so
That's
much. How sweet.
4 hours we put in over
How
there
sweet
on my radio show, Everything Out There. She is the most excellent guest you can imagine.
Oh, how sweet. That's
We told
sweeter than
ghost
a
stories,
whole pillowcase
and-
full of
and-
Halloween candy.
And your telling of the monkey's paw was just amazing.
We should tell a little bit of that tonight. I think I told a little bit about how I remembered we did a
Yeah, that just occurred to you recently, and that was a switch up. Hey, Scott's Life, how you doing, buddy? Good to
Scott's
see
Life.
you.
Let's say hi to these wonderful people, because you know
Yeah,
us.
Scott,
We'll get to go.
I'm still raving
and
over
knock
that
the
bread
wheels off.
maker, Scott. That's one of my favorite gifts that I've
What
ever
a sweet
received.
thing. Scott's a nice guy. So, Scott, did you see under your comment, nice enough to put a comment under the video? And look, anybody that can do that, you don't realize how much that helps in YouTube. If you're commenting under the videos after they've, I guess, loaded the replay, right, Steve? And you go under there and put just a little something, something, and it helps the algorithms. I mean, it's really helping.
It
I mean,
does.
last
It
night, Scott,
catches
so
that
many
interaction.
views.
It doesn't matter if it's good, bad, or indifferent, as
Right,
long as
right.
there's an interaction.
You want to yell at me, yell
You
at
can
me.
give it thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways.
Yep, and you're not going to
But
get.
it helps get the show out there in front of new eyes and ears.
Believe it or not, most of the time I don't argue with people, because I have to. Texting is so. There's. I think many a comedy skit's been done about how people misunderstand text messages, how you receive it, what frequency are you in when you get it, what vibe are you
And sometimes people don't understand the texting shortcuts. I read about a story where a lady's mother had texted her to let her know that her grandfather had passed away. And she said, grandfather passed away, LOL. And the girl's like, Mom, do you know what that means? And she said, doesn't it mean lots of love? Like, no, it means laughing out loud.
Yeah. And see, if she didn't think to ask and just got mad about it and didn't
would have
talk to her for 20 years because
Grandpa
of it.
died, LOL.
You know, I was hugging kitties, kissing foreheads. I was giving forehead kisses, and I'm paying for it now.
Hey, Salvador Soto, how you doing, brother?
Oh, so we're all over the place. So, Scott, you put in there that you didn't get to catch. That's fine. I hope you got to hear it, because we did the prequel and chapters 1 and 2, which was about, I want to say, an hour and 15 minutes of Cabin 22. Most of the time, it was me running my big old mouth, and Sin and I had a blast. But it's such an honor. Steve's an author, multiple books. I've done one on, in paper, and another one about to be in paperback. And, it's just wonderful when an author sits down and listens for the first time, though.
When you hear it.
Yeah. And she hears my story and likes it.
It is amazing.
It still blows my mind, because
I wrote some little independent film scripts that were made into little vignettes years ago. and I got to be on the set when they were filming them, and it's just
Blows your mind.
that feeling when you know what the actors are going to say before they say it
Yeah.
because you wrote it. That's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing that. I hope at one point they get to do this even in a little mini series or something. I think that would be great. And I know, that's more your area of expertise there than mine. But I can imagine being on set and hollering things like, when they're working with Skeet or whatever. No, he's a little more greasy than that.
Yeah.
He's got to lean in a little bit more.
And
He's
they put me
slower
to
in his
work.
thought.
It was like film school boot camp. I
Mhm.
just asked to be on the set.
Yeah.
And the director said, no, you're not going to stand around and just watch your characters come to life. I got to squirt fake blood on somebody.
Oh,
I got to hold the
there's
camera for some
there's a
B-roll.
sentence you don't hear every day.
Yeah. And another time they had taken the
Oh,
back
so glad.
seat out of a car, and me and the sound guy were laying back there. I was holding a camera on, I'd switch it between the driver and the passenger, laying down back there. We had a PA, production assistant, sitting on her legs in the trunk. She's got the trunk lid up, and she's waving cars around with an orange cone on a flashlight because we're on an actual highway.
Trying to,
It was amazing.
And I saw some guy trying to get a shot, some B-roll of a tire rolling. I guess from the back end of it, but from above down, and the tire running on the highway, and the jerk's hanging out the back of a trunk with the camera doing this, and they're actually going 50-something miles an hour down the highway while they're doing this. Cars, not knowing what's
you have
going
to suffer
on.
for your art sometimes.
If that guy slammed on the brake, that guy would have been roadkill.
And the way
in
they
a
would
heartbeat.
do us, they would pick us up in the morning at a predetermined location, take us out to where we were shooting, and then the little 15-passenger van that took us there would leave. So when you got there, you had to stay down. They did feed us and stuff. I think it's like bologna sandwiches and
you always put crackers in your pocket, Steve. Always
the craft services table was actually pretty nice. But yeah, you couldn't leave if you went to. We were out in the middle of nowhere, an old abandoned dairy farm shooting. And once you were there all day. I mean, and all day means all day. 10, 12, 14 hours. Those shoots go long sometimes, but it was fun. I loved every minute of it.
I'm glad you did, Scott. I'm so glad because now, did you like it, Scott? Did you get to listen to the whole chapter 2? That way you'll be right on schedule. Jump in there with us tonight. And it's about an hour. It's about an hour. So we've got a couple other little surprises. You know me, I'm going to make a video. And Steve and I are going to tell a couple of stories, and then we'll settle in front of the fire and put our feet up and, and listen to this is a good chapter too, Steve. You get a little old buck. You
draws you a little further into it.
You get to be here for old buck, but I can't imagine, sitting there with all these characters, so much cat hair, with all these characters and stuff, because like I was telling Sin last night while I was typing. Now, I wasn't here facing this way. I was facing this wall over here, and I had another different little setup working on a laptop when I was writing it. So the secretary desk would be behind me. Last night, I said that I could almost see Skeet behind me. You could feel it more than you could see it. You know what I mean? And it was like he was laying across the top of this secretary behind me. And then I realized what it sounded like I just said. Hey, Idaho. What's up, Peter?
You better
welcome
confirm
in, sweetie.
What kind of secretary you're talking about.
Yeah. I said, let me fix that.
It's like a desk or a cadenza,
the roll top desk. But like he would it on a cot in the prison, and lean on one elbow with that greasy black hair hanging in his face, saying things. And I'd feel him say stuff like, I'd never say that. You better fix that. You better fix that. I'd never say that. Don't be judging me. He was always about everything was judging him. And he was like so two-faced. This is sign language two-faced in at least Cherokee. I can't speak for all the other Native American tribes, but that's one right there that is definitely my grandmother did. But
two-faced.
Mm-hmm. Two-faced and a liar.
Yep.
Two things coming out of you're saying one thing and meaning another. And those are two words, oddly enough, that we didn't have to come up with until some settlers that might be famous came over and set foot on the land and backed us up from the East Coast to Oklahoma. So there you go. we just kept saying, you got enough? You got enough? You got enough? Is it okay? Isn't that enough? And kept going all the way from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, the Delaware River to Oklahoma. So anyhow, under Scott's comment and in the description tonight, I couldn't do it on StreamYard. I have to always go back later and do it after it loads to YouTube. I'll put in the description the playlist. So if you missed the prequel, the first chapter, and the second chapter, you can always go back and hear it in its entirety. They're all together in order. You just put it in play all, and it'll play the whole thing like an audiobook from Kendall Camp, as they say, right, Steve?
Yep.
And it's about 14 hours, I think. It's going to take us all the way till Friday.
Yeah, take us almost up to Halloween. Halloween's what, next Tuesday?
I believe so. I think our last show, the double header, will be Friday night with Marana Butts. She's a psychic medium, and she kind of wanted to be here for the crescendo when everybody, you know what I mean? And I can't. Tomorrow, I believe Lynn is going to come, and we got Ron Murphy on Sunday to finale it all out with Dogmen and Werewolves, and then you in here Monday, and we get back on the horse. You know, but you're going away, aren't you? I want to make sure you can be here.
We're still kind of up in the air.
Maybe do a remote.
May not go to Salem. Might end up going to Boston. There's a ghost tour up there that I'd like to see. Or we may just do something local. There's all kinds of haunted stuff in this area. There's so many options, so many choices.
You know, I'll take you at a park bench under a creepy old tree on Monday night. I don't care. Just set your camera up and we'll just jaw on, you know. But you were mentioning the monkey's paw, and that's one of the things too with this wonderful show. You know, not only we get to hear stuff from this fantastic chat and comments and stuff underneath, but it's also when we're talking and we remember things that we didn't know we forgot to remember. You know, I mean, things pop up into your head. It's like something wedges loose. You go, whoa, wait a minute, I hadn't thought of that in years. So when I was doing all these Halloween treats I've been throwing since September 1st, I don't even wait till like October anymore. I start in September and I start throwing treats at you and ghost stories and aliens and big feet first right at you. For like 2 months. So pretty soon we back it up enough stuff. Steve will be able to meet it around on the other end and just do it year round. Just
the 12 months of Halloween.
Yeah. Why not? We kind of do that anyway.
Yeah. I celebrate it year round.
Oh, is it time for our sponsor for unprovoked, unsolicited, unpaid absolute advertisement,
unsolicited endorsement there. And this is the midnight. Coffee. They've got a midnight dark brew, and they've got the spider donuts. But this, it's super dark. That's the midnight. Breakfast of champions, and I got it with 3 cream and 2 shots of the unsweetened coconut syrup, and it is banging. This is the best, one of the best cups of coffee I've ever had.
Oh, jeez, listen to this. You know, just midnight. Just to be able to go in there and say, I'll have a
midnight. Yeah.
I'll have a large midnight black and a spider donut, please.
And then, of course, my beautiful wife, Nicole, Midnight Society. Nick. There you go.
It's all copacetic. So I would love to try it, but I do not have that tonight, Steve. I have, what do I have? I have
honey.
My official skull. I don't know if you can see it. You see a gold skull. Golden skull.
Hint to the
chamber.
There. Word to the wise, don't put that in the microwave.
Yep. It's not going in the microwave.
Spiral dance all over that gold.
All this metal just reflects all kind of craziness at you.
Yeah.
So pop it a crack, it'll start, won't it? But I have, what do I have? It's apple cinnamon something or other. See?
Is that how you order? Give me one of them apple cinnamon something or others.
Something or others. Yeah, I've ordered things like that.
On the Larry David show, he'd walk into a coffee house and give me one of them vanilla BS things, except he'd say
I'm just one of those people that I'm so low maintenance. Look, and I take care of myself, so I'm no maintenance, basically.
No maintenance.
So, you know, so basically it's you know, and if I'm showing up at your place, I'm there for something. That usually that one thing. If I'm a repeat visitor, I'm there for that thing. So if I'm going in, I'm there for that plain slice, or I'm in for that black coffee and a hard roll, no butter, because it's not butter, and you know, whatever it is. And so I'm easy. I sit down at the bar. They know I want a cold cold ass Boston. They dig down in the freezer deep when I show up. You see that you don't even see no shoulder, all the way to the shoulder. Pull out that real cold mug that's so cold when they put that Boston Lager draft in there, the foam freezes as it comes down. That's, and that's why I go there. And that's why I always, why would I go anywhere else if that's what they have? So, I mean, and I don't change up either, so it'd be that you want your usual. Yes, I do, and people ask me why. And I'm like, there's nothing more disappointing than when you go somewhere you didn't really, and you, well, I'll try something new. And, you don't like it. And you've invested your whole evening and everything you had to pay for dinner that night because, you're throwing money around. You know what I'm saying? So if I find something I like, I stick with it. And then they change it and I get mad. Why would you change that? Like when they
always do that too. They'll bring out something and get you hooked on it, addicted to it. Oh, I love this thing, this certain one thing that I get at the grocery store. And then you go in there and, it's been discontinued.
And so many of it's changed now too, Steve. It's like all of these trusted brands and trusted logos and things you see. You go and see who owns those. There's like 10 companies that own everything now. They bought out all the little mom and pops and the Jimmy Deans and disclaimer, I don't know that Jimmy Dean's been bought out.
Yeah,
I would guess,
there's Beatrice,
but I don't have that
Unilever and like General Foods and maybe one or two more. They own everything.
And then, so your Nestle, chocolate bar, if a Nestle chocolate bar from 2023 met a Nestle's chocolate bar from 1933, they wouldn't recognize each other on the same street.
The ones from 1930 something were about this big and were a nickel. Yeah. And now they're about this big and they're like, I think about $2 for a Hershey bar.
You can find a company
on sale by 2 or 3 and get them for $2 a piece.
Yeah, making stuff like they did back in the day and still owned by the same people or family or values.
Yeah,
or
I don't think Hershey's
very few
Hershey chocolate anymore. I think that's
I can't
somebody.
Speak on it because I would have to pull the sauce.
Yeah,
on
I'd have to
the
do
documentation.
Is Glenn Dannison here? I bet he knows.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Glenn in a hot minute. Is Glenn all right?
I haven't seen him in a while.
Let's say hi to some of these folks.
Okay.
Peter, what you been doing with yourself?
Peter,
you've been gone a long while. I hope to goodness that the first 3. I always hate to take the train off and they don't know where they're going. They miss the first 3 cards of the, you know what I'm saying? They don't know where they're, but I guess you can start in the middle and just people can fill you in if you don't know what's going on. But, I never understood that, like you look at the videos and, one's got, 400 or, hundreds of more views than another one. You go, well, how did you missed 90% of the story? You know what I'm saying? Because they're not watching all of them because they would all have the same. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you started with 1 and went from 1 to 6, and 100 people did that, well, they'd all have 100 views. But if 175 people did it and one video has 175 and it's smack dab in the middle, it might be like chapter 4. It's like, how do you know you missed the first 3 chapters and the last 2? Understand? So that's why I do it. I don't want to leave anybody behind in the dust. How you doing, Nick? Good to see you. Kathita, thank you, sweetie. Dropping links all over the place and sharing the show and being active on Facebook and the social medias and the inner tubes and all that stuff. I appreciate you, darling. Thank you so much. And I don't know how that contest turned out, but I voted my fingers off for you. So I hope you got whatever the hell is you driving a new car or got the vacuum or what did she win, folks? Did she get?
I don't know if she made it all the way through. She gets to be killed in a movie with Jason Kane Hodder doing the cutting.
Oh wow. Okay.
And,
well, if I knew that, I would have made another personality.
I voted for her every day that I could. And
yep.
She was in the top 5 last I know.
Hey, Ted, how you doing? Vixen, you got to be in your glory. I played your song last night and I played it again tonight in the intro. I would love to do that. You know what I mean? Get into a place that likes, haunted and paranormal and stuff like that. I'd do that song. I'd dress up, push my boobs all the way up to my chin, and
the one about who's not your grandpa,
big old hat, head tucked underneath your arm. No, that's the salty ghost.
That sounded like Popeye singing that one,
didn't he? But he's not. I looked it up. He sounded so much like it. I looked it up, and It's not. So there's two
yeah,
people walking around talking like that.
I thought it was Popeye.
Oh, I did too, but I know I looked it up when I first heard the song. Looking for this show, I find the craziest crap. I mean, it's just those novelty songs. I can remember them growing up when I was a kid, more around Christmas, like Two Front Teeth and all that stuff. And now they play this hippopotamus.
I'm getting nothing for Christmas. You remember
Grandma
that?
got run over by a reindeer and all that kind of mess. Wasn't a lot of Halloween songs. There was probably more spiritual songs and stuff like that out in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and the big spiritualism movement, because a lot of them were veiled. I didn't mean the pun there, but I'll take it. But I find a lot of them like ghosts and spirits and different things like that from like the 20s. Pretty sheet music. Everybody had a piano. It was anybody. Gosh, they moved across the big Oklahoma Trail thing with pianos strapped to the back of the mule, didn't they? It was a big deal.
Yeah.
They should have just took up the damn flute. It's a lot easier to carry. You're going to see BEK this All Hallows Eve? BEK. The BEK killer? Peter. Don't go searching out serial killers, because I'm telling you, dead or alive, they can attach to you one way or another. I don't know what's better, alive or dead. It depends, I guess, what they figured out they can do. I know an actual case like that, actually 2 of them. Well, no, 3 that actually happened. Paranormal investigators out there, poking around and where they should be, or maybe not shouldn't be, but in the wrong way, and got a little more than they bargained for. Hey, Yoda girl, how you doing? Did everybody enjoy last night that was here last night? I hope you did. I had a blast. I had an absolute blast. We told some stories, told some jokes. Got a few of those tonight. Let me see if I can remember them, Steve. Why did the ghost get arrested?
I don't know.
Possession.
Nah.
What kind of pants do ghosts wear on Halloween?
You got me.
Boo jeans.
Okay.
And the
Sysco's telling dad jokes, folks.
Yes, so bad, so bad. The last one's my favorite. Why did the ghost cross the road?
He was after the chicken. I don't know.
No, to get to the other side. That was easy. Isn't that funny? Yep. But we're doing stuff like that because remember that show we did not too long ago, Laughter's the Best Medicine. Let's see who else we got in here that we didn't say hi to. Yeah, I would love to do that song. I'd dress up. I'd kick its butt. Yeah, to float to the other side. That's right.
There's another joke, and I can't remember what was the punchline.
Tried to pick a cop's bone.
About the ghost. He thought it was boo sheet.
Boo sheet. I got one close to that tonight. That's for sure.
I only know the punchline.
Just what would you say? The things that attach to serial killers just move. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's nothing to shake an EMF meter at. I'll tell you. Oh, the recipes. Yeah. Okay. You know what? I'll go in and find one. Here's one. I made the bacon caramel popcorn last night, Steve, and I ate the whole damn thing. Finished it off for breakfast. I'll tell you, I didn't even need the eggs. I just ate the bacon caramel popcorn. I ate it all.
It's it was not so very festive, but I made 9-layer nachos tonight. They were delicious.
Hey, that's good. You could have dressed them up with a spider ring and a sour cream spider web.
Sour cream spider web and put a spider ring in the middle of it. I'll do that next time I make them.
Could have put old crusty toes with almond sliver toenails and stuff. Gosh, I've seen some stuff. Thank you, Uncommon. And yes, thank you. That reminds me. Thank you so much, Lindsay, and everybody that donated to my PayPal. I promise you, every bit of that goes right back into this show for time that I put in and for StreamYard costs and, all that other stuff. And YouTube gets their, slice of the pie and big old piece of cheese on their cracker. I'll tell you what, in some of their, we love you,
But 30% off the top of everything.
Their cheese slid off their cracker a while ago. We're here because I love this chat. Let me see. What was I going to do? I was going to bring up recipe. I know I got to go find it. But yeah, the bacon caramel popcorn was absolutely fantastic. And we also have, if I remember, where is it? It's got to be close. The Mrs. McGee's apple pie moonshine, which is so good. Oh goodness, where is it? It's got to be up in here. So what have you been doing this week, Steve, over on your channel? I know you got the books out, and
yeah, I'm doing audio books for my latest book series, the Legends and Stories series. I'm starting out with the Appalachian Trail, then the Pacific Crest Trail, and then the Continental Divide Trail. Videos this week we had Missing Hunters. That was the one that premiered yesterday, and before that it was have to look here.
There was people that were currently
that I do that on the live streams on Friday night.
All right,
it's Missing in the Mountains was the one prior to that, and both those Nicole did an excellent job on them.
Yeah,
and then I've got a dark screen compilation up there for those of you that like to listen to my voice to go to sleep. I've got
that's so helpful.
4 hours worth of nothing but a black screen.
Yep.
And sleep, nap, relax, do your cooking, cleaning, whatever. Just listen.
That means a lot. You got to think about your listeners a little more in depth than just, putting stuff out there. It's like, why are people listening and what type of people are listening? Like if you're doing something like that's what my thing is I would tell Belief Hole, look, you got to take the commercials out of the center, because if you're listening to these wonderful voices and this wonderful sound, these wonderful stories and the camaraderie back and forth, which makes that podcast one of the best out there, all of a sudden, I got, TMU screaming in my ear, or, somebody's erectile dysfunction.
Want to get mad and yell about the ads? That's on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. No, in the middle.
They put them in there. Yeah, the mid rolls. They even put stuff in there too.
You got to block it. I go in and I block mine. That's what it said on. And I go back and I'll grab some of the old ones to see if they're doing it. I'll have to go back and block it again, because if somebody's listening to you tell a story on my show, or Mark Nesbitt, or
like you said in those ads, they crank it up about 15 or 20 decibels,
and it wakes
when the ad comes on. It'll wake you up.
Yep.
Now there's another alternative. I have on Spreaker.com. I've put all the audio up over there. I just dropped a link in the chat. You can go listen to it on Spreaker. Now I think they put a maximum of 2 ads on it, and I think they're at the beginning and the end. I don't think there's anything in the middle. But
Mods, can you drop that my link to the PayPal? Thank you guys for asking about it. Uncommon, can you drop that PayPal link again? I appreciate it, sweetie. And thank you very much. And I never ask you guys to do that, but if you do, because I mean, look, I just went to the grocery store today. I got like a bag, and it was, I know, I never ask. Also, share it, give it a like. It's also a hard genre to share because, your family already thinks you're nuts. So, and then they don't want to see it. But if you've got groups and stuff that are in the paranormal and supernatural, Reddit or Instagram or some of those, share it in there. And, if we pick up 1 or 2 people that want to be here and decide that they want to stay, this is their right vibe, because it's an acquired taste. We don't hold back here. We tell the truth. A lot of people don't like that.
And Kathita, you are correct. You can't tell, looking at me now, I was into punk rock, and then that led me into the goth music. I was goth for a while. I wore eyeshadow and had black spiked hair and all the goth stuff. I'm still a goth on the inside. But
there you go, Scott.
I embrace that.
Thank you, Uncommon. Your ass what?
I said I embrace that aesthetic, the goth aesthetic. I love the color black. Somebody asked me, when will you stop wearing so much black? And I said, when they make a darker color. Now I like to liven it up with a little plaid, but otherwise I'm all black. Everything, t-shirt,
probably
underwear,
95%
socks,
of my wardrobe.
Sweatpants. Almost all my wardrobe is black.
Yeah. I'm safe to say that. Black, there's been a couple.
It matches anything. It's easy to pick out a black outfit. Here you go. It goes.
I used to try to match stuff, and it's so tiring. Unless I'm going gypsy, and if I'm going gypsy, everything matches anyway. So
all my socks are black. I just reach in and grab 2 socks, and there you go. They're always going to be a matched pair.
It'd be really messed up to grab 3. Oh, I tickle myself. Okay, here's a recipe.
I'm not going to touch that one.
Don't leave it alone. Let it lie on the floor. I love that. Look at that crow. Isn't he beautiful?
Excuse me. I'll be right back.
Go ahead. Mrs. McGee's apple pie moonshine. Here comes the recipes, honey. This is a good one. Oh, it's so tasty. Cinnamon. Now around the rim, I roll it in a little honey, and then it's brown sugar cinnamon, or brown sugar cinnamon and sugar in the raw, if you like it extra sweet, all around the rim. Make it yours. Yep, it's not your grandma's apple pie. I got apple cider right now. It's really good. So it's Fireball, apple cider, and vanilla flavored vodka. A little bit of sugar, a little cinnamon, titch of honey, not too much, apple sliced, cinnamon, honey, brown sugar on the rim. Oh, it's so good. And the spider cider for the kids. Just omit the vodka. Just take the apple cider out of it. I love that panda. I may be a little flaky, but I'm sweet as can be. Mrs. McGee.
And do you know what me and the pie have in common?
You flaky?
Meringue.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, let me see if I can find the other one now. Now I know where to look. It won't be so hard. And here comes the bacon caramel. Some moonshine. Here we go. Oh, this was so good. The vanilla makes it. Just a titch of vanilla. Oh man, it's tasty. It's that good. Yeah, baby, screen shoot it. I love that look. All that stuff, Steve, this is also a couple of hints being a designer. Look how simple that is. All they did was a really nice table runner. Now, look, if you're going to have a party or something, this would be great. Like take a ball, grab one of the balls on your way out, you know, and you could make the popcorn balls out of it. You can wrap them in stuff. I think it looks great like this, but people will be all, you know. So get that shrink wrap or something and shrink it with a hair dryer.
So you pick up your drinking receptacle there,
right?
And then eat the popcorn ball, and then they'll come around and fill it up with whatever your libation is to wash it down.
This thing looks like $1 million. You could take a 2 liter and cut it in half, and spray paint it black and set a plate on it. You know, go to the dollar store and get a thing of those wedding plates, those little clear plastic ones, and glue it to anything you can buy there. Grab all different shapes, flip them up, put popcorn balls on them. You can put scatter candy corn or something on the thing. I think it looks great black because the popcorn balls, you know, pop out. But you could put one of those pictures where the face moves and changes when you walk by, and all, or you know, make it your own. But this is a cheap way for a big bang for your buck right here. You know, as a designer, there's a lot of tricks, trust me. Like I say, presentation is 9/10 of the law, Steve. There's your nostalgia. Yep. I love that look. See? Popcorn is ageless, man. You can just, you know. So now if you're asking,
those old postcards from the last century.
If you're asking how much for each one, this is the thing. It's almost all equal parts of everything. So like if you're doing a shot of vanilla vodka, you know, do a shot of vanilla vodka, do a shot of Fireball, okay? And then, you know, 4 or 5 parts, depending on how strong you like it, of apple cider. This is it. Then you just a titch of honey, add it slow because you make it too sweet real fast. Nobody likes that. Okay, give it a little taste test. You find your measurement, and then a little sprinkle of cinnamon, and then you do the glass rim in a little bit of honey. And then some people like cinnamon, brown sugar in the raw because it makes it a little more gritty. And you know, you dip your rim in that.
Better for you too. It's
just like a margarita.
Not been bleached. It's not been processed with all those chemicals and stuff.
Yeah, you do an apple slice, and you can do it with the juice, apple juice, but it's not the same. Apple cider is the best because it's got that real thick kind of. It's still got that fiber to it. It's just a different taste altogether.
I'm not a drinker at all, teetotaler actually, but I've been places where they had an apple teeny. Where they put the sugar in the raw around the rim and put an apple slice on there.
Sure.
And it's apple cider with I think, like you said, vanilla vodka or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, if you want to start off with a half a shot of each, then I would say a half a shot of the vodka, half a shot of the Fireball, and then 4 parts, you know, of the apple cider. And now, if you like it, the frozen version, just put all that in a Ninja or a blender, and put you some crushed ice in there. Then a lot less apple juice, a lot less.
Did you switch mugs?
This is my is my apple cider.
It was black with a gold skull. Now it's white.
And this is my tea.
I thought I was.
They do match. They know each other. They're cousins. They're cousins. One's black, one's white. But yeah. And then for the bacon, popcorn, also you pop your popcorn. You know, pop microwave. That doesn't matter. If you want to start off with the Orville Redenbacher in the bag with the kernels, do it that way. But make the popcorn. You want about, I don't know, what's a regular bag of popcorn, you know. I don't know how many ounces that would be, but, you know, just sort it. You know what I mean? Just don't do too much. Do a little at a time till you get your flavor down. But you take the a half stick of butter and you melt the butter. And then you throw in, I do a handful. I do everything by hand. You know, it's like I don't even use the cup. I use is that enough? Throw it in. So I'm terrible with recipes. That's why recipes don't work for me. I'm like, they'll say, you know,
it's easier just to cook from scratch. A little pinch of this, a little pinch of that. I'll throw some of this in there. How's it taste? Okay, it needs some of that.
That's how I do it. I do it like I bartend. You know, I do it more by smell and feel than anything. But it's half a stick of butter, that's for sure. Melt it slow. Once you get that going, throw a palm full of brown sugar, light brown sugar, dark brown sugar. It's going to be dark if you do it dark. It's going to be light if you do it light. I mean, that's really the only difference. And then you're going to do a teaspoon of vanilla and about a teaspoon of baking soda and about a teaspoon of light corn syrup if you want to. You don't have to add that, but it does make it a little stiffer. And then you got to move fast. Once you got all that, it's just going to bubble as soon as you put in that brown sugar. And get it off the heat and get that thing in a greased bowl and get your hands in there and just get that popcorn going. Throw a handful of the bacon in that right when you mix in the popcorn. That's it. Now you'll have a much structured version all over the internet. You know, you might want one without vanilla. I say it makes it because it makes it extra buttery. It's more like a Werther's original than a regular straight up caramel. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But you got to find your own. But that's basically it. Large bowl full of LOL. That's right. It's crazy, right? But it does add to everything when you could do stuff like that. There's so many different things you could do with that. You know, popcorn balls. You could wrap them in funny, you know, paper or, shrink wrap or whatever you want to do, and hand it out to grandkids, put googly eyes on it or something, make it fun, or just eat it yourself and enjoy it, because you got to eat the big cookie. You got to eat the bacon caramel popcorn every once in a while, and just keep it for yourself. Do something nice for you, and have a little Mrs. McGee's apple pie moonshine with it. It goes very well. Disclaimer: you have more than one of those things, don't go outside in your PJs, start decorating for Halloween or something, or banging on neighbors' doors or anything, because that stuff is strong. So be leery, right, Steve?
Yep.
But even if you don't like the alcohol, it's real good with the rest of it. It's kind of just a doctored up apple cider, but man, you make that frozen in a blender with the crushed ice. It's tasty. It's right tasty. A little cinnamon around the rim. Oh man, I'm sorry, Ron. I hate it when animals cross over. I'm telling you, it's terrible. This chat's had to get me through one of the hardest ones. That one almost took me with them. I'm gonna be honest with you. If somebody came and said, "Do you want to go?" I would say, "Yeah." Just let me go with them. It was just so hard. But I think it's harder than humans sometimes, because you feel like the animal doesn't understand, and it's hard for me to say that to myself. But I tell you, I think they understand a lot more than we think they do.
Yeah, Ted was saying he lost his dog too. They're
yeah,
the one
God bless you, baby.
Now. God bless you, Ted.
God bless you, Ted. Ron. My heart hugs your heart, baby. I know how hard it is. There's just no two ways about it. I had to big old hole. I had to fill mine with 2, just to try to make a dent in it. I understand, one wasn't enough. I hate to say that about, make the little thing feel bad, but I needed more, if I could adopt the whole place, if I had half of mine. All right, man, let's see what we got here. I had something fun for you. What was it? Is that it? That's not it. Let me see if that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. So it's a little nostalgia, just a little trip back, like back to the 60s and 70s. And it's short, but it's sweet. Into the gate, everybody. Hang on. I've been having...
Yeah,
I never thought
Happy
of
Halloween,
that.
Kids. Have a smoke.
Here you go.
Dear Great Pumpkin,
1966.
I'm looking forward to your arrival on Halloween night. I hope you will bring me lots of presents.
They're back. All the Little Peanuts characters in a Happy Halloween special that's filled with delightful, heartwarming adventures from their wonderful cartoon world. It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. And here's Linus to tell you more about it.
On Halloween night, the Great Pumpkin rises out of his pumpkin patch and flies through the air with his bag of toys for all the children.
While Linus waits for the Great Pumpkin, ghosts and goblins, witches and owls make the scene, with Charlie Brown and his Peanuts playmates off on a haunting spree that's filled with surprises. It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, in color.
Cute as a bug's ear. Oh man, I told you not to tickle me. Now I have seeds coming out of my nose. Just one human spice latte, please. Disturbing the peace, you? Possession. I know it's a bad one. I know. So cheesy. Look at him using the hand mixers. That was faster. This lady was all like, give me your shoes. And I was like, which please? You're supposed to say trick or treat, not fill her up. I love these cartoons. I know, that was a bad one. Yeah, I know. Precious dog. For crying out loud, Harold, that is not what I meant when I said only eat wrapped candy. He swallowed them, wrapper and all. Turns out the meow was coming from inside the house. Hey, are you on your way to a Halloween party too? Actually, neither one of us are. The Halloween party was great until the sheet hit the fan.
Yeah.
Okay, there's your chocolate covered pretzels right there. The vanilla with the half a jelly bean. And these are little cupcakes with the fondant ghost. So cute. Jazz up your caramel apples. Have fun with it. And I thought that was adorable on anything like cappuccino, whatever. And that's a simple little cookie with little Reese's peanut butter cup spiders. Have fun with your Halloween. Make something happy. Because, you got to put the magic in your life. You can't wait around for somebody else to do it, Right? Eat the good cookie, right, Steve?
Yep.
Every once in a while, you just got to let it roll. Let me see if I can get rid of some of these videos. I got so many boxes in here, Steve. I'm hoping I could run this video without. We didn't have any problems crashing last night or nothing. That's pretty cool. All right. That should make it a little bit better. All right. So you guys ready for chapter 3? So, Steve, I told a little bit of my version of the story on how this whole thing got started. How do you remember it happening? You bet me, didn't you?
I was doing 31 Nights of Halloween, and you wrote a little short story just to kind of give me a night off called The Cabin. And there was such an outcry. People wanted to know what happened next, what happened after this, where did it go from here? And I think you did just like another chapter, and it organically grew from there into what became the Cabin22 saga.
And
That's the way I remember it.
It was so neat because I thought I'm going to release this like Dickens did his. He's one of my favorite authors. My cat was Mr. Dickens. And because it's such a neat thing to have that cliffhanger. You and I have always talked, Steve, about
Dickens did that. People would line up on the docks when the ship came in from England to get the latest installment of whatever story he was working on. Yep.
So true. And that's why Stephen King did Green Mile that way. Same thing. And he sold it in little booklets, which is a lot like what Dickens did. He started out writing for a paper and doing little stories like that. And as he got more popular, he would release them in what would be considered now like a pamphlet or a small paperback, but just very small. And even when A Christmas Carol came out, that was the big thing for him. He wanted it to be like a Christmas gift. And he wanted it. In fact, he spent so much on the gold foil and the ink colors and for the pictures and for the leather bound in red and this gold inlay that he didn't really make any money off of Christmas Carol. But at that point, he had changed his consciousness so much and come out of his darkness that he was just glad that people were getting the message and that it was received in the way it was. And that was a big deal for him with these serial things. And you and I were talking about when you were a kid, you were watching things like, wasn't Lone Ranger? Was it Lone Ranger that they would leave him hanging literally on a cliff?
It was Hopalong Cassidy.
Okay.
And I remember one time Hoppy was caught in this cliff or in this box canyon. And there was people over here with guns and there was Indians over here. And, he was gone for. I cried because I thought, no, that's the end for Hoppy.
Yeah.
And then I tuned into the next episode to see how he possibly got out of that situation. And the narrator had the balls to say, after Hoppy got out of the canyon, he went into town. That was it. I was so disappointed. My childhood was shattered right there.
I know. And that was the thing. I remember having moments like that. And, different people would do that. Like somebody else that was notorious for that more in the early 70s was Batman.
Yeah.
And Batman would be hanging from a rope, wrestling with a shark, hanging off his leg, and he's all
Batman
tangled
and
up.
Robin got out of the tense situation.
And that's what they they wouldn't finish it. It would just leave this cliffhanger. And that was one of the things I thought about a lot when I did this, is I wanted it to have that kind of an ending, but I didn't want to just miraculously have them get out of the predicament they were in. You're going to go through it with them. You're going to know how they got in or out or didn't, in this story. So I'll tell you what, Steve, can you give us a Halloween memory? Let me go get some hot water in my tea and I'll be right back. But could you give us a story? Like maybe one of my favorites is the one about the cemetery. When you went to the cemetery with your buddies in high school, or was it college?
That was high school.
You were going to scare cheerleaders, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, they're
tell that and I'll be right back.
Initiation. Now, remember, school started back in September. Well, they had a new cheerleader squad coming on. And as part of their initiation, they had to go to this certain cemetery, go all the way to the back, and get the name and date off a particular tombstone. Well, we'd heard about this. My friend, I'll call him Will, his sister was a cheerleader. So we had some inside info there. And we thought, wouldn't it be funny to go in there and scare these girls? Well, we went in there. We hid out early. Sure enough, a couple of carloads of girls pull up. They get in the cemetery. And we're about halfway into the cemetery, not as far back as they were going to have to go. And we hid behind some big ornate tombstones there. And actually, I think Will had climbed up in a tree, and I was behind a tombstone. We did it a couple of times on a couple of different nights, because they had the junior squad and the varsity squad. And then anybody that was new on either one had to go through the initiation. So anyway, we hear these girls in there. They're looking around with a flashlight. They're hanging on to one another. They're all scared. Well, we jump out and start moving toward him. He drops down out of the tree, and I came out from behind the tombstone. They run off screaming. Well, over to my right, we see another figure running through the cemetery toward him. We have no idea to this day who that was, because we had walked through the cemetery to find our prestigious hiding spot there. But there was somebody in there with us, and that kind of spooked us. And it didn't make any sense. In that cemetery, it's in the Carnes community on Beaver Ridge Road. It's a Beaver Ridge Cemetery, I think is the name of it, on Copper Ridge Road. Now, there's a Copper Ridge Cemetery, but that one's something different. Copper Ridge Church. There'd been an old church there at one time. It'd also been a school. It'd been a Masonic lodge. Been several different things. That was purported to be haunted. There was always something weird going on in there. The graveyard itself was purported to be haunted. There was I think it was a certain tombstone, or maybe a few different ones, that supposedly glowed in the dark. And they were luminescent. I don't know what that was all about. And another kid we knew from school claimed he had seen somebody in there in a cape running around one night. It was a scary place, even in the daytime. But that was a good Halloween memory. And it was around Halloween. That wasn't exactly Halloween night, I don't think. But it was Halloween week. But that was fun, to get to scare a group of cheerleaders, and then get scared ourselves, knowing, well, who's the other guy over there running on our flank, and never did figure that out unless it was something that was already in there most of the time.
I'll tell you, I was listening to you, and who's got a story similar to that is Shannon LaGrew.
Yeah.
And I've heard.
Speaking of, you and I are recording with her tomorrow for the 8th annual Into the Fray Halloween special. Sysco and I are joining Shannon for the 8th year in a row. It doesn't seem like it could possibly be that long. And then in other ways, Seems like it had to be more than 8.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what day that'll air, but we're recording it tomorrow. But it is her Halloween special over there. We'll have some good stories
Kathita
for
sent
you.
you a pic. Did you see that? She
I
was
did
telling
not.
you something about a pic.
Let's see.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I've heard more than there's a story, and come next Sunday, I'll tell you, give you the link to the free movie on
She sent
YouTube.
a picture of an unopened box of candy cigarettes. Do you remember when you could get those and
Yeah.
people gave them out on Halloween?
Heck yeah.
And she said it tasted like sweetened chalk. And
It did.
that's a very accurate description.
Had a little red tip, and it had a little brown on the end. It almost looked, and it looked like a cigarette. Candy cigarettes.
Candy cigarettes.
Can you believe that? That's
and it was even in a pack. It looked like a pack of cigarettes.
I had a little monkey I got from the flea market. I remember out here at Collinswood Auction. It was a little monkey about that big, and it had little cigarettes that came with it. You stick it in his mouth and light it, and it would sit there and puff
and blow
smoke rings.
Yeah, I remember I had one of those too. I got mine at Stuckey's. Does anybody remember Stuckey's?
I remember Stuckey's.
When you were driving in
25
the
miles
the
to Stuckey's. 24 miles to Stuckey's.
At all the major exits, and they had these wonderful little vending machines back there. I got little skeletons, and remember the little Scotty dogs with the magnets, and you try to make them sniff their butts, and one would turn around at the other one, and got all kinds of stuff. The Stuckey's still even exist, I think.
The little fish. Do you remember the fortune fish?
The fortune-telling fish. You put it on your hand, it would curl
and it would
up,
curl a tail, or it would flip-flop back and forth, and everything meant something different. It was actually the warmth of your hand. It was a thin, almost a rice paper kind of gel, like you would use to, like the gel on for you old rock and rollers and the old stage lamps and stuff. You'd put the gel. That's what it was like. But the warmth of your hand would make it warm it up and make it curl. It's a trip.
Yeah, it would twist, it would dance, it would flip over.
You can still get them.
Yep.
And we used to get them at the Chinese restaurant.
Sure.
Well, that was a fun sound. Your sound just went funny, Steve. Did you hit a button?
I must have.
All right, now you're back. It sounded like that's perfect. It sounded like the wind just sucked you into a vortex or something, and then I could see you, but I couldn't hear you.
Strange things might happen.
Yeah, I could see you, but I couldn't hear you. It was opposite of that poor farmer's cow where you could hear him, but he couldn't see him.
Yeah.
That's frightening. I mean, you see a
tell
cow.
That one tomorrow night.
I mean, right in the middle of a field where the snow, and all of a sudden this cow's footprints just disappear in the snow, and there was no place for it to go but up or through a portal or something.
And that happened at Skinwalker Ranch. They thought the cows were going missing, and they thought, well, it snowed, it'll be easy to find them this time. The hoof prints went right up to the edge of the woods and stopped. No cow, but they looked up, and the tree limbs like 12, 15, 20 feet above were broken, like something took that cow straight up.
Straight up and broke the limbs. Oh, my gosh, yes. That's something similar like that. Might be in Cabin 22, but I remember the chocolate cigarettes too. And you know what? I remember the bubblegum cigars. Steve, do you remember those? Yep. They were big, long cigars. They were bubblegum.
It looked like a white owl. Those big cigars. It had a label on it and everything, but they were bubblegum, and they came in all different colors.
With that
and you
white
remember
powder.
There was another type of candy cigarette. It was bubblegum, and not the chalky stuff. It had like a cigarette paper around it. And it had just a dusting of, I guess, flour or something in there.
Yes.
And you could blow on it, and it would blow a little puff out.
Smoke, a little puff of smoke, and it was really super fine cornstarch, I believe.
Cornstarch.
That's what they put on that bubble gum and gum and stuff. Yeah. Wow.
Those were the days, my friend.
Stimulate. How you doing? Welcome in. Oh, doing flute practice. Stimulate. Well, it could be worse. Could be drums, honey. Could be drums. It could be a trombone or something like that. Oh, gosh. Lord, don't let it be a sax out on the back porch. It just depends. I mean, when it's good, it's good. But when it's bad, it's hard. Just like that little girl with the strawberry curl, right, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. All right. So here we go. Chapter 3. We have left it off. So what do we know so far? We know that there's Cabin 22 on a mountain in Alabama. And a lot of these things did happen. I can't tell you which ones. If I've gotten permission from the person to tell you, I tell you, okay, that one was true. I just made it fit the story. But some of the weirdest things in here fit that category. The strangest things really are true that happen in this. It's a compilation of those things and stuff that I've learned throughout my journey in the paranormal supernatural. But some of these little stories where friends of mine and Steve's had given us permission to weave it in here. Some of the craziest
everything
parts.
in there is based on an actual occurrence.
Right. And this is based on a young lady named Joan who took her 2 kids to this cabin, 2 little boys, Jacob and Michael. And Dave, who is just recently divorced and changed his whole world around, got a new job. He's coming from upper state in New York City, to what he thinks is kind of a little town in Huntsville, Alabama, but it's not. It's very metropolitan, and it's just got that sweetness of the South all moved in. It's just all throughout. It's lovely. And he's getting used to that. And he thinks he's just going on a 2-week vacation in one of these cabins to do a little fishing with his dog, Rage. And he starts to meet everybody. And so who we've met so far is the caretakers of the cabins, Mr. and Mrs. McGee. And we met the fixer-upper on location there, Mr. Tater. A big dude that just, according to Mrs. McGee's got his heart bigger than he is. And you've met, you've met Greta and George Steele when we last left. And you also met Jeb and Skeet. And Jeb and Skeet are obviously running a family-owned, it's been in the family a very long time, a still hidden up in the caves. And they're 2 characters that you're going to see more of in this chapter that they're young men, late 20s, early 30s-ish. And they're both bad in their own way. You heard a little bit about Jeb last night and how in his journey he got steered to go and probably making some wrong decisions in his life and his crossroads. But you're starting to get the gist that he was kind of verbally and physically abused by his dad, but has kind of that Stockholm syndrome where he still admires everything his daddy did. And he still hears his daddy's voice in his head telling him, boy, you better, a little phantasm in there. Boy, you better, pay attention, or, don't you flinch. That's for losers. And, lazy men, which one are you? And, don't, he's always hearing the voice. So he's been abused to the point where he still wants to please his dad, but he's still scared to death of him at the same time. And even though he's been dead a very long time, and it still has that effect on him. So it's kind of also a lesson in how do people get the way they get, what makes them the way they are. And to put a character arc like that, you're going to see a lot of that in this story. Why are people the way they are, and why are they meeting here, and what do they bring with them? And it's kind of like this chat, and like the people that listen to the show, everybody has a similar interest. But once you move away from that, everybody has got their own special sparkle and their own special spice. You know what I mean? Their own attributes, and you all came by them honest. You went through your life, you got this far, and so did the characters in this this story. You ready, Steve? Roll the bean footage.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Here we go. That's what Greta was saying in her sleep last night. The Strange Case of Cabin 22, Part 3. George shook his wife awake. Wake up, Greta. You are dreaming again. He shook his wife's arm gently, and she stirred awake. Oh, my. Oh, my. She rubbed her eyes. Was I doing it again? Oh, yes, he told her. It's all right, though. It's all right. Getting out of bed now, and he eased his feet into his worn slippers that were just getting right, and he wouldn't let Greta throw them out. What was it this time? Not another accident? I can't stop, was it? She sat up, worried now. No, don't worry. It was nonsense, he assured her, and she eased up a bit. In the past, her own words had scared her so, and she couldn't even remember saying them. Well, you'd think if I am to be burdened with this gift, I would remember something useful, like where I put the recipe for my mother's sriracha, or where I lost her ring that time. Don't you worry, my rosebud. All things happen for a reason, and I love your sriracha. He smiled, and she felt better, grabbing a robe from the foot of the bed and wrapping it around her. It was chilly in the room, and she looked out the window. It is still dark. Why are you getting dressed now? She teased. He struggled into his flannel shirt and reached for his corduroy pants. I am on the hunt for the Swanson's thrush today, he said proudly. Oh, how could I forget such a thing, she smiled. I hope this year it will be the one, that you get to take the good pictures, and you find him, and dress warm. Wear those boots I bought for you. Even though they pinch a little, they will help you on the slippery rocks. He smiled. It was their routine. She knew what he was doing. Just as he knew she would be making something lovely for him to eat when he came back to the cabin, or have a crocheted scarf for him, or socks like last year when they stayed here. They came every year, sometimes in the spring and sometimes in late fall, and sometimes both, to catch migrations of birds rare to the area. This year it was the Swanson's thrush, and he would get pictures of the brown beauty and send them to the Audubon magazine with the other photos he got this season. Maybe this time he'd make the cover. I am going to go down to the showers, get a hot soak on my back to wake me up, and then off I go before the sunrise. The thrush loves the water and the morning mist. Well, I will be here. I have my new audiobook to keep me, and my wool work. You'd be careful out there in those woods. You call in on the hour, every hour, and don't make me wait. Ha ha. I will, he agreed. He had bought them, her really, a little walkie-talkie set so they could talk while he was on his adventures. It made her feel better, and, if he was being honest, him too. And if you are going this early, you'll bring some wood in and stoke the fire up, and I will make you a thermos of hot coffee and pack you some of my baklava to take with you. Thank you, Rosebud. I will get the fire before my shower now, and I will start the coffee. Looking out the window of the tiny cabin bedroom, she said to him as he grabbed up the clothes he had set out the night before with his little brown shaving bag, The mist is thick this morning. You make sure you have your yellow light. I do. It is in my kit with my camera and my gear, my love. Off they went to their separate duties. Fire stoked and coffee made, he carried a cup with him as he headed to the short walk to the showers. He loved his wife's coffee with just a pinch of cinnamon and eggshells to cut the bitter, she had said. And he loved the early morning, and he still had plenty of it in front of him. It was barely 4:30 a.m. Towel over his shoulder and his bags in his hand, he strolled past the other cabins and cut to the path that opened into the view of the manager's lodge. The shower stalls were located in what they called a longhouse, made of logs, of course. One longhouse for men on the right, and one for women on the other side of the general store. As he approached the lighted trail that led to the men's, he almost felt like he was approaching civilization again. The lodge was the only electric around, and it almost felt funny, even after a short time in the cabins. He could see lights on the manager's lodge from the window of the kitchen in the residence off the back end of the lodge, and knew Mrs. McGee would be making her sausage biscuits already. A very early riser. She always was, every year. And he would stop in and buy some for him and Greta to have before his adventure. His walkie-talkie was in his shaving case, and he knew hers was in her apron pocket by now. They never separated without them. He entered the Showers Longhouse, and the lights came on with the door. Something new Chuck McGee had added this year. He placed his shave case on the last sink in the row and picked the shower stall in front of it. The tiles in there gleamed and smelled of pine. The McGees kept everything spotless here. Each stall opened up to an interchanging stall, with a lock on the green wooden doors, and a bench, and a place to hang your towel in each one. "Ha!" he said as he opened it and saw something else new this year. Large shower gel soap dispensers hung in the shower wall, and bright blue shower curtains hung between the changing stall and the shower itself. Last year they had been grayish blue and much older. Good for them, he thought. New lights, new shower curtains. Things must be going well for the McGees, and he smiled. He liked them both very much. Just wanted to stop here for a minute and get you guys to think about, why are the McGees doing so good? Why do they have a banging year? You're going to hear that throughout this first part here. You know, and they put it right back into their cabins and stuff. They don't go off on fancy vacations. They love this place. This is their home, and they are more caretakers of this place than anything else. And you'll see little signs where they're doing good and they're full and they're sold out on their cabins. Remember when Tater came in with the keys? There wasn't many cabins open, just that one, and the one that Joan had moved out of. So that's something you want to keep an eye on and see. I wonder why they're doing so good this year. He reached in and let the shower run on hot for a moment. He got undressed and thought, "Hottest water on the mountain," Chuck McGee often said, and he sure wasn't kidding. Dave woke with a start, still with the 12-gauge across his lap. Rage woke up too, and Dave could smell a hint of that smell again. Oh, no. He looked at Rage, who wasn't growling or staring at anything. But he felt uneasy just the same. "Morning, buddy," he said to Rage. "It is morning, isn't it?" He glanced at his watch, 4:25. That was just great. He figured that the 2 or so hours he had had was going to be it today. "Coffee," he said to Rage, as he got off the couch and stretched, walked over to the kitchen and took the stovetop coffee pot he had ordered off of Amazon and took it out of the box. It came in 4 pieces, with the directions in the top pot. He took them out and threw them into the empty box the beer came in that he was using for garbage. "We got this, don't we, boy?" Rage, laying on the floor, had his head on his paws looking up at Dave with nothing but confidence, and let out a yawn. "Me too, boy." Dave dumped the coffee grounds into the top and filled the bottom with water, lit the gas stove with a match that was in a box on the counter, and said, "Let her rip." He took a can of Royal Canin out of the case, opened it with the pull tab, and looked around the kitchen, thought a moment, and grabbed a pot out of the bottom cabinet and plopped in the brown chunks. Looks good, boy." He placed it on the floor, and Rage jumped up, awake now, and Dave knew it would be gone before he got back from the bathroom. It was still dark, and he poked a fire as he walked by, making a mental note to get more wood out of the porch. He grabbed the Coleman lantern off the couch and made his way to the bathroom. He had to take a mighty piss, and the coffee would be a while anyway. The bath was small, a half bath, he recalled. A small sink and a toilet was all that was in there. What was that Mr. McGee called it? A commode, he recalled, and he set down the lantern spotlight so it beamed upwards and lit the small room in an eerie kind of way. He relieved himself and pulled the chain that hung from the tank that stood high above the bowl, and it flushed with a loud whoosh. I forgot that was in there.
Love those sound effects.
Me too.
Interesting, he thought. Commode.
Commode.
And he said it out loud with an understanding tone and a nod. He reached for the light and started out of the room, and the beam of the light caught a small mirror that hung over the sink. His face illuminated in the darkness of the small room. Dave could see what looked like black dirt on the glass. At closer inspection, it wasn't dirt at all, but a greasy-looking black goo that read, "Help me."
There she is, Steve.
Jimmy! Yeah, come here.
Wait a minute, did you get her?
Yeah, I got her. Here she is. Jimmy, meet my sister.
All right. Yeah, she sure is, Minnie.
Don't you worry, sister. We'll get you a fella before the night's over, and then you can sing sweet love songs like Kitty Wells and Ray Chris.
Skeet sat on the couch listening now to a rerun of the old Grand Old Opry show playing over the radio. He was at least 2/3 of a jar into the best hooch this side of the Mississippi and feeling all right. He was still stinging from the chastising he got from Jeb. Who did he think he was, anyhow? He said out loud to the cave and the dead occupants in the twisted mess on the floor. Sally answered back with a little whistle of steam. She purred along, dripping out the gold they had so depended on these days. He comes in here ordering me round, telling me off. All I'm doing is my job. He tossed a Cheez-It toward the pile of rats that had grown by 4 since Jeb had left. You listening to me? He said to the rat on the top of the pile. Skeet's ball bearing had ripped half its head off, and Skeet spoke to one eye. He thinks he's smart, keeping things from me, like the secret to his daddy's hooch recipe. I'll find it out. I tell you, I'll get him to talking one night when we're out night fishing. Get him all loosed up on hooch, talking about his daddy in the good old days, as he calls 'em. He tells me about 'em all the time. I hated that mean old coot. He's meaner than a snake. He tossed another Cheez-It at the rat, and it landed in the muck that used to be his head. Then, he pointed a nasty finger, still with old dried rat blood on it, at the rat and emphasized his next words. I'll get those ingredients out of him, and I'll take care of him like I did that old Bob fool down at the lake. He thought he was smarter than me, too, till I cracked his skull open with that rock. He threw his head back, laughed again, pointed his finger at the rat with a grin that grew across his face. He looked just like you when I sunk him in the river. Put those rocks in his pocket to hold him down. The rat stared at him with a dead eye, and Skeet felt judged. I had to. He is going to tell on me. He found out I stole that money from his cabin. Wasn't much, $200. And that old pocket watch with the train on it. He reached down in his overalls and fished in there a bit and drew back his hand now, holding the gold pocket watch he'd spoke of. There was a train in full speed ahead motion, frozen in time on its surface, in raised etching. He ran his filthy fingers over it, feeling the cold gold finish. He pushed a little button on its top, and it popped open to a cream watch face with beautiful gold filigree hands and funny numbers on it that looked like letters. The watch played a little tune. Skeet closed his eyes as if taken away somewhere just a moment and listened. He opened them again, and inside the watch face it read, "To Robert eternally, your Susan." "Engraved, they call that," he said to the rat, who was still judging him with one eye. "In the grave is right." And he chuckled again. He snapped the pocket watch closed and stuffed it back in his pocket. He took another sip of the jar and talked to Farrah now, hanging on the wall. "You mark me. I'll get that damn ingredient, and your boy Jeb will wish he had treated me right." He heard a scratching behind him, and he turned and sat up all at once, spilling the rest of the contents of the jar down the front of him, and knocking the makeshift metal table over to boot. Ball bearings ran out of the bag, and then everywhere, as Skeet grabbed up the Widowmaker and a few of the bearings off the floor. With a keen eye on a drunken man, he loaded and aimed at what he called Big Buck. The biggest damn rat he had ever seen, he had told Jeb one day. "Damn thing is smart and it's messing with me. Won't take bait and always gets away. Pulling one trick or t'other. But I'm on it. You can count on me. You can count on me." The words echoed in his head, and he struggled to stand straight, the hooch running through his head with those words. And for a moment, it looked like two big bucks running across the case of jars on the shelf. "You just hold still, you son of a bitch." He swayed a bit, got his footing, and aimed true. Pulled back on the rubber sling and let her rip. Whomp! Shards of glass and Jeb's daddy's best shine sprayed the walls and Skeet. And Skeet stepped back to steady himself. Old Buck dove straight down and ran behind the still, avoiding the aftermath of Skeet's shot. "Damn it all to hell, you little bastard. You come back and take your medicine." He stepped back and landed on the case of mason jars. His foot got tangled up in them. He jerked and kicked some out, and they broke on the floor. The room filled with the smell of shine, and Skeet was real hot now. He grabbed a hold of the huge barrel of the still to steady himself and burned his head. "Ow!" He yelled and jumped away. The rat skidded past him and ran behind a couch. "Gotcha now, you shit." Skeet moved forward to throw back the couch and finish off Big Buck. His boot landed in the pile of dead rats, and he slipped backwards, caught several of the ball bearings with his other foot, and that one move threw him back into the still. He caught a grip on the copper coils, and saved his fall. He landed on the 2x4s holding up the heart of that still. When he focused, the rat was now on top the sugar barrel, and seemed to taunt him with gray eyes and whiskers that twitched its judgment. One ear had been chewed down or tore off by another rat long ago, and Big Buck wore it like a badge. "You little shit, look what you done did, and you're gonna pay. Now the rat just sat there in front of Drew and her little butterfly tattoo, egging him on, it seemed. "I got your buddies, and I'll get you too." He bent, picked up a ball bearing off the floor, and aimed at the rat. But it was gone. Just Drew, smiling at him. "Shut up, you bitch." Skeet saw a flit of gray just in time to catch Big Buck taking a turn down the tunnel, the one with the exhaust fans. "Shit!" Skeet kicked the jar in front of him, and it broke into the steel shelf leg and slowly seeped into the pile of magazines there. Damn it, anyway. He thought a second, and he came up with what he felt was a brilliant plan. All right, I got you. He grabbed a box of Cheez-Its, and what was left he dumped on the floor at the entrance of the tunnel, turned a Coleman spotlight on and aimed it right at the pile, turned over a crate and kicked away the mess on the floor in front of the still. He sat down on the crate for the best view, grabbed a handful of ball bearings and sat 'em next to him on the boards under the still's tubing, and grabbed a jar that was rolling next to him, unscrewed it, and took a long sip. He wiped his mouth with a dirty sleeve and stared down into the darkness of that tunnel. You're going to pay for this. I got all night. I'm going to get you. You
Me
can
too.
count on me. You can count on me. He reached over to the radio that had tumbled onto the floor and turned up the song and sang along with Garth. I got friends in low places. Sally was singing too, except Skeet wasn't listening. She had got damaged in his run in with that old buck. Her pretty copper coils got pinched and poked, and she was whistling now, whistling a low, sad tune all her own.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Well, folks, how do you like it so far? It's a pistol, isn't it?
I forgot some of those lines of dialogue. I'm sitting here laughing.
I'm laughing my ass off over. I'm trying to keep the mic open to say little things as I think of them, but I wanted to stop and focus on the watch for a minute. Now, so many things in this book are silent little nods that are lost in my mind somewhere, that they came out of just the air, some of them. But one of them was the watch, and that watch was a nod to a couple of different scenes in different movies. And one of the main ones was The House That Would Not Die. And we've seen scenes from it here on this show. We've talked about it a couple of times, but the ghost takes over. It's a ghost of a young girl and a young man that were killed by basically her father. And the father also haunted the house, and they were constantly at it with each other, and the living family there had a hard time. But anyway, it's a great movie. Time of Their Lives. Barbara Stanwyck, she gets to smack a couple people. It's absolutely worth seeing. They do ghost stories right in that movie. But buried in the basement, of course, was some items, the poker that killed them, and this gold watch. And when I first saw that, I never forgot it. It was such a personal thing. And when they opened it, it played a little tune. And so that was my nod to, like I said, a couple of movies. But that's not my daddy's watch. You ever saw Life? That too. But the song is for my grandmother, my mother's mom. And she was given a little powder box by my grandfather from the war. And I think he got it in the Pacific. And it was beautiful. I'll never forget it. When you took the lid off, it played Somewhere My Love, which Vixen and I forget who else said it. But Laura's theme is close.
Laura's theme, yeah. My grandmother used to have a music box that played that.
Yeah. I remember that too, because that was a big deal in the 70s when I was going to school. Half the school was watching that thing. I was in a band. I didn't have time for soap. But the Somewhere My Love was the song, so that was a nod to her. And Skeet, this whole time, what I said earlier, this is the time where he was laying on. I promise you, I started thinking about that story Steve tells, that we've heard Steve tell about the Shadow Knows, where what's this? What, I can never remember the author's name.
Walter Gibson.
I almost said Brimley. Yeah, Walter Gibson, and it was the character of the Shadow, and he was in a New York apartment, and he wrote so much and so prolifically, I can't even say it, that it was almost a tulpa, right, Steve? Almost
Yeah,
like
he
this
called it a
character.
psychic imprint or something like that, but he would see Lamont Cranston, who was the man who
That's it.
was the shadow, flitting around in his
So
apartment with
thirsty.
the trench coat and the scarf and the slouch hat, and
Right.
other people saw it too. He had a dinner party one time, and there was somebody up above on the balcony above the living room or the dining room, and they say, "Oh, that's funny. You hired somebody to dress up like the shadow." And he said, "No, that whatever that is here."
Yeah.
And this man had like 6 typewriters, and he would go from typewriter to typewriter, no writer's block for him, working on
They
different
just
stories.
he just
And
had to do it.
literally,
Yeah.
blood, sweat, and tears. He wrote hundreds, if not thousands, of episodes for the Shadow, for the radio, and for the old dime novel, the magazines and stuff.
That character was just so real, and and I almost want to say that it was something like that, but I don't feel it was like that. It was more like he was here. So, I mean, I would read these things to Steve, or I would record them right away while I had the feeling. I would write it and then I would record it real quick. And I read it to Steve, and I'm like, I don't remember writing that. And I know it was the only one in the room that I could see.
And some of those voices, that didn't even sound like you. you
Wait till you get to the part where
voices.
I'm standing in a circle of people. Literally, there's a circle of people having a conversation, and I'm doing all these voices in the conversation, and it's just, it got a little hairy there, but some of these came so easy and so simply, and Skeet was one of them. This guy, like, you got to wonder, he's to feel so judged by these rats, and to feel such an elation of getting one over on these rats, and the fact that he built his own weapon and he got real good with it. And all of these guys, at least a couple of them, work in the garage at the base, halfway down the mountain, at this garage that now Jeb owns. And they're all hanging together, and they've just got this kind of friends in low places kind of vibe to him. You know what I mean? But Skeet was his own. Skeet and Jeb both. They just came out of nowhere. I know he was here, especially when I was writing this part of it with him and the rats. That was all Skeet, So it's a trip. And Steve was the first one to pull out that this was so very Moby Dick, Steve.
Yeah.
And
in 2 or 3 different ways, but the rat was
going, baby. So glad.
His literally the albatross around his neck.
Yeah. And it was very Moby Dickish. And when you think, I don't know, can you say it like that? And this rat, and now he's sitting down, and he's got him a little plan. He's got friends in low places, and him in this radio, and all this hooch, and this place is a mess. And he's supposed to be doing the last 2 crates for the biggest run they've got all year, and poor Jeb left and counting on him, but he pissed on the Dogman, so now he's running scared somewhere. We don't even know where Jeb is.
Where have I heard that story before about somebody peeing on a Dogman?
That one I had to get permission to use, because
Sir
that
Brian
one actually
Bowden's
happened.
Infamous encounter.
That's Bowden's story. That happened to Bowden, except he wasn't alone when it happened. Al Santoriga, he was with him, and but that actually happened very much like the story. But I don't know. Poor Skeet's in trouble. All right, Steve, you ready? We're gonna finish her up.
Yep.
There
Dave
goes
took
Sally.
a closer look at the mirror. What was that? Is this a joke? He didn't think it was funny, and he didn't want to touch it, and reached over to the roll of tissue on the wall, unrolled a handful, and wiped at the E in me on the mirror, and looked at the black substance on the tissue paper. Black, slimy, and sure smelled bad, too. This was not at all funny, and he wondered what his welcome cabinet surprise and the guy at the window if this wasn't some sort of a prank. He rolled up the tissue, ripped off a large piece of the Kleenex box on the tiny table in the corner with its pine tree print on it, folded it over the tissue, and stuck it in his jeans pocket. He was going to talk to Mr. McGee today and get to the bottom of all this. He walked back to the living room to find Rage staring at the steam from the coffee pot and the coffee pot boiling out all over the stove. Oh, man! Dave wasn't having a good morning, but he made the best of it, cleaned up things, and pulled the soaked directions out of the box on the floor. He shook them off and poured a coffee into one of the provided cups and drank it, grounds and all. You gotta pee, Rage? Let's go. Out into the morning mist they went, and Rage went right back to his tree. The air smelled wonderful, and Dave sat in the rocker for a moment and took it all in. He saw lights through the trees and knew it had to be the lodge not far off at all. Hey, boy, what do you say we get a hot shower and one of those biscuits Miss McGee told us about? Bet they are early birds, too. He took a long sip of what had to pass for coffee right now and hoped Miss McGee had a better version brewing over there. Rage close in step with Dave, they walked a short distance to the showers. Rage not happy with the leash, but enjoying all the outside smells. Dave pretty much the same. He hated the leash, too. It was for the strange people, really. Rage didn't need it. He also was enjoying the outside smells. He made his way via the charming hand-painted signs to the shower longhouse, it was called. He could hear a shower. And possibly a man singing opera? Or very close to it. Coming from inside, and he pushed the door, and it got louder. Not too shabby, he thought. A long row of sinks stood off the wall like soldiers, gleaming in white. A matching row of large shower stalls stood on the other side, each with their own dressing stall. Nice, he thought. There was a brown shaving case sitting on the last sink in a row, and he remembered he hadn't seen one since his dad's when he was a kid, and he smiled. Steam rolled from the top of the last stall in front of the case, and the singing stopped. "Hello?" Dave called. Don't mind me. I'm Dave, just getting a shower. My dog is here with me, too, Rage." And Rage woofed, as if to introduce himself. "Hello there," came a voice from the steam. "Welcome aboard. I'm George. Water is good and hot." Great, Dave smiled. I could use it. George started a song again, lower, but just as happy, and Dave picked a shower, too, in from the first. Opened the door to the changing stall, tossed in his gym bag, and brought Rage in with him. Locked the door, and hung the loop of the leash on one of the hooks provided, and drew back the shower curtain. Nice, he thought, and turned on the hot water. Skeet stared at the pile of Cheez-Its, singing along with Johnny Cash's Hurt and staticky transistor radio, and rolling 5 ball bearings around in his hand. The other hand was busy swishing around the hooch in the jar, slopping it here and there, as he emphasized his favorite parts of that song. His jet-black, greasy hair hung in his eyes in clump strands. He hadn't seen old Buck for a while, but he'd be back, and Skeet would be ready. "Boy, you bet I will." Johnny's song began to go in and out with the static trying to take its place, and Skeet reached out with a filthy hand and turned the transistor radio toward him, only dropping 1 ball bearing in the process, and a sliver of a grin came across his face. "I still got it. I still got a steady hand. And don't you go out on me now," he spoke at the radio. The song came back to clear again, and he smiled fully and turned back to the pile of orange cracker bait. Swaying now to old Johnny, the radio into white noise static again. And then it started to screech a bit. Skeet set down the jar on the boards, holding up the still, dropped the bearings onto the floor, and grabbed up the radio, angry now. and smacked its back where the batteries are kept. Damn it now, that's Johnny you're messing with. He was warning the radio now. The radio went to silence, then started up the staticky wailing again. You think you're taking care of business, do you? A gruff voice, Skeet knew well, came from the dark tunnel of the cave behind the pile of crackers. What? Skeet, scared, froze and barely could speak. He looked in the direction the voice came from and picked up the Coleman and shined it all around the area. Nothing. Oh, come on now, man. Get your sheet together, man. Hold on. He coached himself along. You're just hearing things. That's that hooch talking. He tried to convince himself, and he laughed. The radio came back on clearly, and the volume rose to capacity, finishing Johnny Cash's song with a bang for sure. He shook his head a bit and pushed his hair back off his face and looked again down the dark tunnel. Nothing. He set the light beam back on the Cheez-Its and settled a bit, grabbed up a few ball bearings and tossed one down the tunnel. A metal click, click, click echoed and faded away as it bounced into the dark nothingness. He waited and heard nothing, and then the voice came again. I asked you a question, boy. Skeet stood up fast and sloppy at the same time, staring into the darkness of the tunnel. He knew this voice from long ago, yet not far enough in his past for him. Skater Davis, you're more worthless than that son of mine, that damn shocker that is. Skeet couldn't believe his ears. No. He's dead. I saw him put in the ground myself. Get yourself together, man. He whispered these comforts to himself. His insides felt like they went liquid. He stared into the darkness, not wanting to see what he heard. He heard one step, and then another, and a large figure formed in the shadows. Ezra Perkins took another step into the light and crushed the stack of Cheez-Its with one size 13 boot and ground the orange mess into crumbs. He smiled at Skeet, slow and long, with a toothpick in one side of his mouth. You think you're taking care of business, do you, boy? Skeet's knees failed him, and he hit the floor, and the world blacked out around him. Oh, man, this is what I needed, Dave thought. The hot water eased his muscles, and he stood one hand out onto the green tile wall and leaned in and just let the water cascade down his face. And his thoughts went over the last day's events, his ex, the lawyers, an 18-hour drive from New York to Huntsville. That last bit through Tennessee nearly killed him, he thought. Should have stopped along the way for more sleep than just the stolen hour or two back in Virginia in that Cracker Barrel parking lot. He's sure most of the events at the cabin and the black mist he saw was due to the lack of sleep. But rage, he had seen and heard those things too. He opened his eyes and drew back the curtain a bit and reached into his gym bag and rooted around for the shampoo he brought. Rage was sitting there and looking right at him. Nice to have a guard, he thought, and smiled. Few more minutes, boy. Almost done. Closing the curtain, he popped the top and poured more than he needed into his hand, and the mint and sandalwood scent filled the little space. Nice, he thought, and massaged the gel into his hair, listening to George finish his song and pick up another, and the sound of George's tap being shut off. The man's voice echoed off the tiles, and it sounded really good, he thought. He thought he heard the outside door open and close, but nothing else. Just George singing in English this time. Are the stars out tonight? I don't know if it's cloudy or bright. Just then, something grabbed Dave's ankle and held on tight. He let out a surprised sound from deep inside and opened his eyes, not knowing what had just happened, and caught a glimpse of a large black thing retreating quickly back into the space between where the tiles ended and the green wood partition started.
Oh, no.
Rage started barking, and Dave jumped into the little dressing area Rage was in, darting one open eye back and forth at his feet and the open space around the shower. George yelled, "Dave, is all okay?" Rage was looking, too, in between barks, and Dave grabbed the loop of the leash, using one burning eye to see, and unhooked the latch to the wooden door, swung it open, and tried to look at the door to the bathhouse exit. It was just closing, and he caught a glimpse of something large and black in the last 4 inches of outside he saw. "David!" a voice from behind. Dave opened his eyes again, shampoo lather running down his face and neck. He blinked, and a man, medium-built, pot-bellied, and balding, with a hefty mustache, wearing nothing but a towel, stood in front of the last shower stall. "Are you okay? What happened?" Rage sat by Dave, gave a whisper of a growl, and Dave said, It's okay, Rage," as he wiped the lather out of his eyes. "Yes, I think. Did you see? I better go after her." He spoke all at once in broken sentences. "What?" George said as he approached. "Well, you must be Rage," he said to the dog, and Rage wagged his tail. "You'd better stay here," and gestured toward Dave's nakedness. Dave only realized then he was standing there naked. "Yes, please go and see if you see anything." And George did, as Dave grabbed a towel, wiped his eyes, and wrapped the towel around him. George opened the door and peered out. "What am I looking for, David?" "Something huge and black," Dave answered, using his flannel shirt to wipe his face and eyes. "I see nothing but darkness," George replied. "Can you tell me what happened?" he asked as he came back. "Something grabbed my ankle from under the wall partition, and must have been in this stall." Dave kicked the door open to the first stall with a bare, wet foot and saw a black streak on his ankle as he did. George pointed. "Odd, that." And he saw it the same time Dave did. Dave sat down on the bench and lifted his foot, touched the black streak, and rubbed the substance in his fingertips. It felt greasy, and he smelled it. Motor oil? Grease? He had no idea, and he was questioning his own mind. "I don't know what is happening here, but I see your ankle is turning red. Is it motor grease, you said?" George questioned. I don't know," Dave said, "but it was something all right. Why would anyone do such a thing? But it was huge, the part I saw, and the hand or paw or whatever it was also huge. But I didn't get a good look either time." Rage sat between them, and George held his towel up with one hand and extended another out toward Dave. "Well, I am George. Pleased to meet you." Dave's eyes, still stinging, reached out and shook his hand and said, "I'm glad to meet you." "That's Rage, and I'm Dave." "Let me look again." George went to the outside door, opened it, and looked around, and then shut it. I don't see anything. Looks like the McGees are up, though. You should get that soap off. I have to shave, so I'll stay here while you finish. Keep an eye on things. We can get a good look around out there together." He nodded toward Rage. "Okay if I pet him?" George said, "Sure. That okay, Rage?" And it was, and George scratched his head. He saw it, too. "I heard him barking," George remarked. "Yup, he did. Darn leash probably kept him from reaching it, though. He can stay out here with you if that's okay. Nothing will get in. Just don't let him out, okay?" George smiled. Sure. We will have a song and a shave, won't we, boy?" "Go ahead, Rage." And off they trotted toward the far sink. Dave got back in the shower and thought about the black goo on the mirror. It wasn't the same, he thought. "This one smells like motor oil, dirty motor oil. and the other one stunk to high heaven. He remembered he had the tissue wrapped in the cardboard in his jeans. And the men finished, and Dave felt better in his fresh clothes, and George told him of his adventure to getting a sighting of the thrush, and hopefully some good pictures, and told him about Greta's baklava, and about the trail to the good fishing spot off the Blue Trail, and he had suggested Dave take that one for good fishing. They left the shower building together and walked on up the manager's lodge. Dave's eyes were still burning, and he thought he could find it blindfolded if he needed, because he could smell those biscuits and coffee too. George continued to call him David, and that was fine. Sounded right coming from this gentle character. George was neatly shaven and full of life, and joked about his need to call in to Greta. She feels better when I do. Yes, Rosebud, I will be back shortly, he finished with over. A crackling voice came back. Dave couldn't make out what it said. No, not too late to catch the morning mist. Getting some biscuits from the McGee's. Need anything else? Over. The crackling. Careful. Over is all Dave caught. Will do. Over. George put the walkie in his vest pocket now, a brown hunter's vest with so many pockets Dave chuckled a bit. If you meet Greta today, I would ask you not to mention your incident just yet. David. She upsets easily, and Dave said no problem, and that he understood. They reached the door to the little general store, and George reached to open it. When we have a moment to talk, I will tell you a few things I have heard going on around here. Dave's sore eyes widened. Mr. McGee has a no-nonsense approach to the weirder things, and he won't take kindly to his guests being bothered on this campground, though. Let's get a cup of coffee, and I will tell you what I know. And Dave agreed. All three went inside the dimly lit store. Mrs. McGee did have coffee. Dave got a large cup, black, and 3 biscuits. Mrs. McGee put 3 of her homemade peanut butter dog biscuits in a brown bag and gave Rage another. They said nothing about the incident. Outside, they sat at a large picnic table on the side of the general store. George told Dave that there was talk here and there about seeing things like a black mist or a large black thing just off the trails. 2 days ago, he spoke with a woman while her 2 boys fished in the river off the Blue Trail. She had asked him if he had heard anything going on around here. George had told her he and his wife had been coming up here almost 8 years, sometimes twice a season. Nothing seemed to go on until this last spring. George leaned in toward Dave when he said that she told him she had to change her cabin and that she and one of her boys saw something in the first one, something big and black. It had a bad odor and it scared them very much. They had stayed in 22 like you, Dave. Dave was relieved and shocked at the same time. Dave told George that he had seen something, but he wasn't sure. Do you think it was the same you saw at the showers? Dave remembered the tissue, took it out of the cardboard, and showed it to George. Whew, that stinks, George winced, and folded it back up. It's not the same as today. That was dirty motor oil, if I had to guess. What is going on around here, George? I don't know, David, but my wife has taught me things I never thought I'd believe. Over the years, I've seen things, too. Things science and common knowledge can't explain away. Dave told him of the incidents in the cabin, the cabinets, and everything else, and feeling better now that George wouldn't think he was crazy. And he didn't. I can tell you this. Old Bob, that's what everyone called him, lived in that cabin over a year. They found him drowned of a fishing accident, they said, down by the river. That's a huge lake off of the river off the Blue Trail. And he was there where that mouth opens and water gets rough on those rocks. But it just doesn't sound right to me. I got the story in pieces and been trying to put it together myself. There are a lot of repeat campers here, and yearly stayers down at the RV park. Word gets around. McGee is a decent, hard-working man and tries to keep a lid on it. He has a full house this week. All the cabins are booked. He does his best to keep it safe and peaceful. Word got out that the woods are haunted or something, and has been doing his best to hold back those paranormal groups from running around with cameras and such. Dave nodded. He just doesn't want to get a bad reputation up here in the cabins, but he's trying to do his best. You can't keep people out, though, if they want to get in. I think that's why the McGees have been so busy this season, able to add on extras this year. Just my thoughts, though. It makes sense. I can't tell you exactly what's been going on in my cabin, but I have my eye on it. Have you heard anyone else other than the lady with the 2 boys? Dave asked. Joan. A little. Still trying to fit the pieces together. I can tell you more this evening if you like. I usually come out here by the fire pit, enjoy a cigar with Chuck McGee. I can tell you again, though, he is a non-believer. Calls it nonsense. I truly think it scares him. So we can meet a touch earlier if you like. McGee doesn't usually come out till about 10 p.m. or so. That work? Dave said that it would be fine. 9 p.m. then. George told Dave he would be headed down the Orange Trail to get close to the little waterfall where the thrush may be. That there was everything the Swanson thrush loved. Best fishing is off the green, the yellow, and the blue trails. Follow the signs. They talked a bit about fishing, and Dave laughed about going around back and trying the worm machine. George said goodbye to Rage, who took to him right off, agreeing to meet again tonight. Dave gathered his 2 other biscuits and the bag of peanut butter treats for Rage. Went around to the worm machine, put in his quarters, and got a little box with, worms and dirt in it. Amazing, he thought. George called back to Dave. Dave, have you ever heard of anything called a rougarou? And Dave thought for a moment and walked up to where George was. He had not. What is it again? A rougarou. Dave shook his head, but told George he had planned on going down to the mountain to grab some supplies, and he should have a signal there, and he would be happy to look it up on his phone for him. Technology, George laughed and waved a hand and a thank you as he cut off the dirt road toward the cabin and Greta. Dave walked on with Rage. Rougarou, Rage. You ever hear of that one? Rage just kept his eye on a squirrel who darted across the road, and Dave got his fishing stuff out of the truck, and they went back inside the cabin. Everything in its place. Dave checked the contents of the tackle box and sat down to finish eating and read the directions of the coffee pot.
That's so pretty. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
I could build a cabin right there.
George set up his tripod for his camera. The waterfall was lovely. The mist was just starting to lift from the grass. Thistle and wild black-eyed Susans danced to the sounds of the earth waking up. Even the kudzu was pretty here. Calls his ears knew began to sing to him, cardinals, chickadees, ruby-crowned chicklets, and a mourning dove called to her mate, and the waterfall was their accompaniment. Binoculars around his neck, he set up his second tripod off to the direction of the downstream river. He had an overview here of several of the trails that widened around below him. The yellow trail marked every so often with a splotch of yellow paint on a tree, or an unassuming wood sign low to the ground marked the trails. Blue to his right, snaked in and out, and clear around the side of the mountain. A long one for sure. There were 12 marked trails in all. He had walked them all over the years. Here was the best spot to wait for the thrush. Opened his little folding stool, took out the thermos of coffee and a piece of Greta's baklava, and sat down to wait and listen. Dawn was cracking, and the boys were thrilled to finally get to Old Blue today. They had finished breakfast and were getting their fishing gear. Joan smiled and was glad that things were picking up since they moved cabins. She packed her book, hoodies, and things for the boys and some snacks in her backpack. The boys were goofing on each other and grabbing their fishing gear. "Off we go, boys," she called after them. "I'll beat you," yelled Jacob to his big brother. "No, you won't either," Mike answered, and they sped past Joan like whirlwinds, and Joan laughed. "Wait for me now," and shut the door. George heard the familiar song he was waiting for and slowly lifted his binoculars and followed the sound. His excitement rose as he alternated from the binoculars to his eyes and then back again, zeroing in on that sound. There she was, the Swanson's thrush. He quickly let the binoculars quietly fall around his neck and lifted the camera that was there. Snap, snap. He took multiple shots. Eased his step back and used the camera on his tripod. Snap, snap. The thrush skipped over to another branch. The morning sun shone on its feathers. Another round from the camera around his neck. She flew off and landed on the branch with the little waterfall in the background. And George moved behind the tripod again, focused, and set off a series of good shots. The brown beauty flew up and over the stream, and George followed her with his binoculars so he could catch another shot. She was gone. But some movement caught his eye. A small boy, seeming to, track a rabbit, with the cunning and skill only a boy could have. He chuckled. He was on the trail down below, and George looked further up the trail and saw a woman with another boy. It was Joan, doing something with Mike's shoe. He slowly focused back to little Jacob, not far away from them, but enough to be scary, he thought. Out here, anyway, there's holes and rock slides. What was the boy doing now? The rabbit turned off the trail and went further into the thicket, and the boy followed. George focused in. The brush was very thick here, and he could only see flashes of the boy. And then the boy standing near rocks and lots of kudzu covering most of it. He was pulling on the vines and pulling back those green vines with the large leaves. Jacob reached in his back pocket and got a flashlight and pulled at the vines again, and they gave way, and the boy seemed to step into the small opening and just disappeared. "What in the hell?" George whispered. "That's not good at all. A hollow in the rock? A cave, maybe? Oh, no." He stood up on the rock near his camera tripod. "Hello!" he yelled, waving his hand. "Hello!" He focused on the woman with his binoculars and yelled again. Nothing. The waters from the falls, maybe, drowning out his calls. Oh, no, he thought. This is not good at all. He threw his cameras in his bag. He'd come back for the rest, his tripods and his stool. Threw his backpack on and made his way down the rocks that he had climbed up on, his pinching boots doing their job to help him ease down. Greta was right. The grip on these were good. He would hurry to warn Joan, but even at his best, it would take longer than he wanted it to. Jeb woke up and his head just hurt. Oh, man. Not only because of the position he had fell asleep in,
Poor Jeb,
with his head on his desk in his office in the back of that old garage, but he had sat in his truck for a while after his run-in on the road last night, and he drank the contents of a flask that he had carried in his truck. It used to be his daddy's flask. Still had his initials on it, too. When he was done with that, he drank the moonshine he kept in his desk. The combo was wreaking havoc on his head right now.
poor
He
Jeb.
was foggy, too, and he smelled like piss. How long had he been here trying to get this experience out of his head? Whew. It just wasn't possible that he saw what he thought he saw on that road. Just not possible at all. He was behind now, too. Hadn't done a stitch of work on that John Deere he had to finish.
He's in trouble.
It just wasn't possible. He thought again, shook his head. He rubbed his face and blinked and looked up toward the dirty window, and the sun streaked in through the dirty glass, and he knew he had slept through the night. Oh, man, I done it now. I gotta get that tractor done. He tried his best to stand up, and his head spun, and he sat back down. The front of his head was banging, and he was in bad shape. He opened the drawer to his right of his old beige metal desk. Just the sound of the metal slide on the drawer made him wince in pain. Stuck his hand inside of the drawer and felt around. Took hold of a jar of aspirin. Shook out about 10 of them into his hand and threw them in his mouth and chewed them up.
Been there.
He slowly got up and made his way to the old garage bathroom sink that was covered in greasy handprints and had a chip missing off one corner. And he pulled the string that turned on the light and winced at the brightness of it. He turned on the spigot and reached down and drank the water from the faucet, held his head back to swallow the aspirin, and then repeated it. Then he threw some water on his face and looked into the dirty mirror. As he stared at his reflection in the filthy glass, he heard his father's voice. "You sure are a mess, boy. You ain't taking care of business. You are worthless. That's what you want to be. Worthless. Go and handle your business." This last part tore through his head as if his father was standing right there, and he pinched his nose between his eyes to hold pain from running across his face. That's when he remembered Skeet still at the cave watching the still. "I double damn guarantee that old son bitch got drunk and didn't finish his job either." He quickly threw more water on his face, lifted off his old cap, brushed his hair back tight against his head, put the cap back on, and fast-headed out of the back door to where he always parked his truck, round the back of the old garage. As he opened the door, the sun hurt his eyes, and he squinted and winced. He squeezed his eyes shut, then opened them and focused on his old green Chevy. Fumbled for the keys in his pants pocket. Yes, he thought, they were there, and made his way toward the truck, mumbling to himself about how Skeet better have finished those last 2 cases of hooch. He stopped in mid-stride, dead in his tracks, squinted again, then focused on the side of the pickup. There were 4 long claw mark scratches from the start of the passenger side door to above the back wheel well. They were deep and actually dented along each one with the force and power of the beast that was behind them. From the top mark to the 4th, the width measured as wide as the hubcaps on his tires. Jeb felt his chest get tight and his stomach started to whirl, and he bent over and threw up.
I see you. La la la
It's creepy.
That's very creepy.
Jacob knew he wasn't going to catch that rabbit. He knew. I'm not dumb like my brother and my mama think. Rabbits run fast, he thought. But just like that girl who was dumb in that book that Mom had read last year, he was going to see if this rabbit would show him something. Something, I don't know, secret? Jacob whispered this last word to himself like it was magic. He'd just quick see if this was something back here. A hideout, maybe? Treasure. Like that other book with that pirate. You know, the one with the stick for a leg. The rabbit had led him this far. This was a secret cave. The door was hidden with that green vine stuff. But the rabbit, he knew it was here. So many stories he had remembered had caves, he thought. As he made his way behind the rabbit, it did seem to lead him. It took a quick turn at the entrance and followed a small, tight tunnel, and Jacob got down low and quickly followed with his light. Oh, Mom would be mad for sure. But if he found treasure, she'd forgive him, wouldn't she? On they went. Jacob saw an opening ahead, and the rabbit took off. "Hey, wait for me," he whispered. Jacob put the little flashlight in his mouth and crawled forward after the fuzzy little guy with the secret hiding spot.
Uh-oh.
Joan took the rock out of Mike's shoe and tied the laces in what she called a mama knot. Just a double knot, but she started calling that after Mike stuck his 6-year-old foot up with his old dirty Converse sneaker on it and asked for a mama knot, 'cause it kept coming loose, Mama. She laughed at the memory and tossed his hair, which he hated, and she tried to do that at least once a day, and said, "Stay close now. Those sinkholes are deep, you know." Mike looked over her shoulder. "Hey, Mama, where's Jacob?" Panic hit Joan in a tight squeeze in her chest, and she quickly turned around. "Jacob, Jacob, come out here now." She ran back up the trail a bit, retracing their steps, her head racing. Okay, he was just here. Mike started calling too. "Come on, you little goof. We're going to be late for the fish." Parent panic started to settle in fast on Joan's chest, and she was fast into full throttle mom. "Jacob, you come out here right now. This is not funny." Prayers, ideas, and help me gods all played in her mind at once, and she mindlessly grabbed Mike's arm as she backtracked her steps, keeping him close till she could see them both together and okay. "Jacob!" Rage was loving this adventure now, sans the collar and the long leash, running circles around Dave, up the trail and back down, sniffing everything. Dave walked with his tackle box in one hand and the pole over his shoulder, and that made him think of that old Andy Griffith show, and he just laughed. By the signs, they were a quarter mile into the Blue Trail. Fishing spot wasn't far off from what George told him earlier. It was a beautiful morning, and this is exactly what he had come up here for. Rage nosed at a butterfly, bright orange in the sun, that was sitting on a rock, and he wished he had brought a camera. Dave thought he heard a woman yelling, but the echo and the sounds of the outdoors distorted it. He stopped. There it was again. "Jacob?" he thought.
Uh-oh, Steve, here we go.
Skeet woke with a start, heard the transistor playing a forgotten staticky tune. His head felt like a brick.
Hmm?
Where am I anyway? He focused above him, squinted his eyes. The cave, he thought. Oh man, my head. He pushed his feet to get up, and the room seemed to spin. He focused on sitting up instead. He held his head in his hands, palms to his eyes. Oh, this is a bad one. He ranked this hangover. No stranger to them. He looked up and around him, trying to remember. The place was a mess. He tried to push himself up again and grabbed onto the crate and sat on that, looking at the tossed-up couch and broken jars on the floor. Man, this is a mess. Slowly, the events started to come into focus. The damn rat! Ouch! This made his head split. He palmed his eyes again and felt like he was holding his face on. Just then, he remembered the dream he'd had. Oh, that was no dream. That was a nightmare. He told himself, you gotta get it together, man. He remembered Sally and turned himself around on the crate to check the drip jar. Scared he'd let her run over. As he did, he looked toward the pile of Cheez-Its. They were crushed into dust. He heard a whistling in his head as his fear came back home, and he realized it was no dream. That's right, shithead. I'm right here. Ezra stepped into the light of the Coleman still going on, smiled at Skeet, took out the toothpick, and pointed at the still. Game over, you worthless shit! Terrified, Skeet looked uncontrollably toward the still with his jaw hanging open. The whistle that was coming from Sally. His eyes opened wide in realization. Oh,
What happened? What? Ezra. Man. We're still going. It's like 21 gun salute, Steve.
You have been listening to The Strange Case of Cabin 22, Part 3. What just happened after the still blew up? Did Ezra's ghost come to try to stop the still from blowing? What is Jeb going to do now that he knows that he was attacked by something in the woods? What was that large wolf, man, dog thing? Tune in and find out. Part 4 of The Strange Case of Cabin 22.
Wow.
Well, that was your cliffhanger.
One thing is absolutely for sure, without a doubt, there's no more question. I am officially batshit crazy. I listened to that and I'm like, wow, some of the lines get me. Like one of my favorites is when Jeb is riding before you get to the cave and you don't know where he's going yet, and he's just driving that old Chevy, and he says he's thinking in his head that he shuts his lights off because he has to, he's driving dirty, so he says he's going to moonlight in memory. He's doing it by moonlight in memory. I don't know where that came from. Some of these lines in here just get me, and I think, man, that came from the spirit world. You know what I mean? It's just weird. But here we are. I think Jacob, Jacob breaks my heart. Every time I hear Jacob, that was one I think was channeled. Ezra, for sure. and definitely Skeet. And we don't know what happened. I mean, still blue. I'm sure he's fine. But you'll have to wait till tomorrow night to find out, right, Steve?
Yep.
So I don't even know where old Buck was, or gosh. And Jacob, where's he? He's crawling around chasing a rabbit, So, but he's just a little guy on an adventure, and he's like about 6. And I'll tell you, doing a little kid 6-year-old voice and little demon girls and all this stuff, I have no clue. I'm just as surprised as you are. Trust me, and I was here. So it's weird, but I am batshit crazy. So happy Halloween, everybody. I told you, Steve and I told you this had everything, and you ain't seen nothing yet. Because there's a lot more coming, right, Steve?
Yeah.
And all week long, all the way till, like I said, Friday. Tomorrow night is the unsinkable Lynn Monet, and she's a big fan of this story too. And I hope you guys are enjoying it. I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much for being here. Happy Halloween, spending your night with us and these wonderful gatekeepers and all these light bringers and stuff like that. And if you pay attention to there's a paranormal, supernatural, very realistic river that runs through this entire story. And if you pay attention, you'll probably see yourself in one of these characters, because there's so many. And maybe it'll help you in your battle, because we're all out there battling our own wars. You know what I mean? So may it give you strength and take you away a little bit. We can at least do that for a couple hours this week every night. So, Steve, thanks for sitting in on chapter 3 with me.
My pleasure.
It's been a hoot. I'm glad you were here for the old Buck and the big kaboom. And tomorrow night, it gets even deeper, folks. This train just started rolling. So I'll see y'all here tomorrow night, and let's see if we can get you something to take you out of here. And I got something. I got a little Kevin MacLeod, A Little Darkness Is Coming. So, Steve, what are you doing this week? And we'll get you out of here.
I got videos coming out, a little bit of this and that, and then heading into Halloween.
Hell yeah. Full tilt boogie, man. This train doesn't stop till the 1st of November. We'll take a couple days off. We'll start it again, right, Steve?
Yep.
All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to this story every time we listen to it, even though it's a tradition and we've done it for a couple years running now. Tomorrow, you and I are going to do another tradition with Miss Shannon LeGroux. And wonderful Into the Fray. And that's 8 years, right, Steve? Yep. So
8th year in a row.
I don't know. I'll have to dig down. Do you think we can come up with some stories?
Maybe a couple.
Maybe 1 or 2 out of your back pocket. All right. Me too, I think. All right, everybody. Be blessed. Keep your eye on the prize. Keep the lights burning. Keep your closet door shut. Your feet under the covers, because there are things that go bump at the night. Good night, Nick.
Good night.
Love you, everybody. Good night, Steve. Love you, baby.
Christmas.